Have you been contemplating on a 50mm lens to get for your full frame camera? Maybe you just got into Sony mirrorless and you're looking for one right now. Maybe you've seen this really cool nifty 50 and were wondering, is this any good? Should I buy it? Or maybe you've looked at the top of the line at the Sony Zeiss 50mm f1.4, going for $1,500. Or maybe you started looking at Rokinon. Maybe you looked at Sigma and some other brands and options out there and you're still trying to figure out which one you should get. Well, in this video, I'm going to look at 5 different 50mm lenses, including the Zeiss 55, and help you decide which one you should go ahead and pick up for yourself. If you don't know me already, I go by That One Camera Guy. I do tutorials, guides, and reviews on Sony mirrorless equipment and gear. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on the latest content. And if you can, please smash that like button, because this video took way too long to make with so much testing and synthesizing and all that jazz. Let's continue. Alright, first of all, I want to let you know right now, this video is more about the general testing that I did and sort of the results that I got out of it. This isn't going to be like a video that shows like amazing photographs and pictures of these lenses. This is more me talking to the camera, sharing some video clips and some images and some results, and kind of break down to you and summarize to you, based on all the things that I tested, the results of which one you should pick and who's it for. Okay, so that's what this is. If you're looking for that high-level DP review kind of stuff, you're not gonna find that here, okay? This is just, I'm doing a mix of both photo, testing, autofocusing, sharpness, and all that stuff. I won't know how long the video is gonna be, so I'm gonna just go ahead and start off with a general summary for those of you that don't wanna watch the whole thing, to save you a lot of time. If you, for example, have a high resolution, maybe A7R, A7R3 kind of camera, and you're just the kind of person that just wants the best sharpness across the board. That is your thing. IQ, that is your thing. You don't care about cost. You have to go straight to the Sony Zeiss 50 f1.4. Okay? If that's what you want, you go straight to this lens. Okay? Simple as that. All right. If you're on a budget, you don't have a lot of money to spend, and you're like, man, I need a 50mm lens. Is the 51.8 any good? This is okay. There's nothing wrong with this lens. You're gonna have to stop it down, obviously, to improve the sharpness overall. Wide open, it's fine. It's not great. It's not Sony Zeiss f1.4 level, but it's gonna get you by in the meantime. Okay, I think it's a good value. Autofocus is decent. Autofocus speed and performance is not bad at all with this particular lens. And again, if you're on a budget, you don't really have a choice. No worries, get this lens and you'll be all right. Now, if you're those folks, if you've been spoiled by really nice glass, of course it's going to be really difficult to go ahead and get this lens. If you've been spoiled by some really wonderful pieces of glass, it's really tough. But if you're just starting, it's not a bad choice. The lens I would choose in the middle, so there's the Rokinon, and then there's also the Sigma, and then there's also the Zeiss 55, which is kind of the third horse in this kind of scenario, or whatever the term might be. I'm really tired right now, so this is the one I would choose. If you're looking for one lens in between all of this, you're like, okay, which one should I get in between? Get the Zeiss 55 f1.8. Autofocus is fast. Video, photos, that's all solid. Image quality is good. It's not I would probably rate it like third place out of sharpness and image quality. But in terms of just the bang for buck, what you're gonna get out of it, this is the one you would grab in the middle. In terms of just everything. If you're looking at the lens as a whole, this is the one I would grab if you're looking to step up from the Sony 51.8, the nifty 50. All right, so that is my summary. I'm gonna go ahead and break it down as best as I can. All right, I'm gonna try. I'm not a super technical person when it comes to this stuff, and I'm still trying to refine my process, but I'm gonna just do my best to explain. So the first test that I did was just sort of like a central sharpness ladder test. There's some text, and I went ahead and photographed them with these 5 different lenses. I think I was using the A7R3, it might have been the A9, okay? From my test, the Sony Zeiss 50 f1.4 was the sharpest of them all. At f1.4, it didn't look too bad. Either I misfired or something like that, but for sure, when you stop down the 51.4 to f1.8, it definitely improves considerably. If you're looking from the left and to the right side is the f1.8. It definitely clears up, but again, it's potentially, I could have had a misfire here, so it's hard to compare exactly at f1.4 between these. But let's just go ahead and take a look at the Zeiss 55 1.4 and compare it to the nifty 50, which is our best budget, well, our budget 50. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. So on the left hand side, we have the Zeiss 51.4, the nifty 50 on the right. Let's go ahead and zoom on in and take a look. Here's what we'll see. The Zeiss 50 1.4 is definitely sharper in the center, wide open compared to this one. I don't think there's any question about that. Let's go ahead and now look at the Rokinon. The Rokinon is on the right hand side here, wide open. As you can see, the Rokinon, there's something going on with this one. Definitely you're getting a different color cast and softer, wide open on this one here. Let's jump to the Zeiss 55 f1.8, wide open versus the Sony Zeiss 1.4. It's not too bad between the two wide open. Actually, this actually looks pretty good. I would say the Zeiss 55 1.8 is actually pretty close. But it definitely changes when we stop down to Sony Zeiss. This is the Sigma 51.4 Art on the right hand side here. And again, not doing too bad of a difference between the two. It doesn't look too far off. The Sony Zeiss still looks a little bit sharper in my eyes. Now let's go ahead and stop down the Sigma 51.4 Zeiss to f1.8, and you're going to see some definitely sharpen up here. Okay, so let's see. Let me just double click on here, and then now let's go ahead and compare. There we go. So Sony Zeiss on the left, 1.8. These are both at f1.8. Look at the considerable difference in sharpness. It is very, very substantial. And now we're looking at the Rokinon on the right-hand side at f1.8. Again, these are all at f1.8 right now. Let's go ahead and jump to the Zeiss 55 f1.8. So they're both 1.8. Again, take a look at the difference here. Central sharpness on the Sigma is definitely better. And then here is the Sigma at f1.8. They're not too far off. I would say they're pretty close, maybe almost the same, maybe give, I don't know, you guys decide on this one, but they look both pretty good. These are both at f1.8, this Sony Zeiss and the Sigma 50 on the right hand side at f1.8. I think by f2, let's see here, yeah, the Sigma pulls ahead, right, by f2. So let me go ahead and show you something crazy. So let me jump to, all right, so the left hand side is the Sony Zeiss at f1.8. All right, the nifty 50s on the right hand side. When we stop, we have to stop down the nifty 50 to about f4, right? This is f4 now, to get similar sharpness to the Sony Zeiss at f1.8. I think we have to go to 5.6 almost. So let me switch these around. So by f5.6, or by f4 to 5.6, the nifty 50 catches up to the Sony Zeiss in central sharpness. That is insane. Again, that's what you're paying for. Now, those of you wondering about the Rokinon, let's go ahead and jump to the Rokinon right now and see if we can see how well it gets. Here's the Rokinon at f4, and then the Sony Zeiss at f1.8. The Sony Zeiss is still better. Let's stop it down to 5.6. Sorry for the jumping around here. The Rokinon is on the right hand side here at 5.6. It's still slightly soft, but it catches up. It's getting close. So that is what we're seeing here between these comparisons. I did a test shooting on the side of my house, the wall there. Unfortunately, I don't have like the nice lines and the brick walls. I can only look at the sharpness from corner to corner. So the Sony Zeiss 51.4 was the sharpest of them all, and so that's going to be our benchmark comparison. So I'm going to compare that and start with the, we're going to compare wide open, and I'm going to make a comparison to the, I believe, the Nifty 50. So Sony Zeiss on the left, Nifty 50 on the right. We'll start here. So we're going to go to the center. You're going to notice right away that the central sharpness here on the Sony Zeiss is obviously better, obviously from our initial testing. And then we move into the peripheral areas here. The Sony Zeiss definitely is considerably sharper. The Nifty 50 begins to definitely soften up towards the edge here, and the Sony Zeiss pulls ahead dramatically towards the edge of this frame. And then in the very bottom corner as well, you could definitely see the considerable sharpness difference between the two. Definitely softer on the Nifty 50, and then up here towards the edge, you see that continuation there. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the Zeiss 55 f1.8. So let's go to the center. I think we sort of already know that the Sony Zeiss and these two wide open are fairly similar from our ladder test, but as we move on into the peripheral areas, we can start to see some discerning differences. We'll see that the Sony Zeiss again pulls ahead, sharper towards the edge here, wide open at 1.4 versus the 1.8 on the Zeiss 55, and then towards the bottom corner here, you'll see the Zeiss f1.4 pull ahead again. Much better performance overall, even here at the corner on this side here. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Rokinon for those of you wondering about that. Wow, that color cast and change is very substantial. Let's look at the center here. And we already know the Rokinon is fairly soft towards the center. Let's go ahead and move on towards the edges here. And we're going to see, again, it softens up, and you're losing a lot of resolution and detail here. I'm not seeing it on the Rokinon. Look at this corner down here, doing pretty bad wide open. These are both at f1.4. Again, 1.4. This is the Rokinon. Oh boy, it's not doing too hot. All right. Seems to be some decentering issues potentially, unless I messed up on my testing. If you notice here, you'll see that it's considerably blurry here, very soft, and then down here it's sharper. So there's obviously something going on with here, or I screwed up my test in some way. Now let's go ahead and jump to the Sigma. That's our biggest competition here. The Sigma and the Sony Zeiss 1.4 are very close in performance in my opinion. So let's go ahead and take a look. Again, Sony Zeiss on the left, Sigma on the right. There is correction data on the Sony. The Sigma glass does not have any correction data, so you're going to see some vignetting, some stronger vignetting than the other one. So don't look at that too much, just look at the sharpness during my test here. Again, central sharpness we said was going to be pretty similar for both of them. Here we're going to see both are wide open. The Sony Zeiss pulls ahead, but not by much in my opinion. And the bottom corner, again, Sony Zeiss pulls ahead, but not by much. And same situation over here, in my opinion, just my perspective here. Okay, so you guys can decide for yourself. But again, central sharpness, very similar. This peripheral area, very similar, but towards the edge, you're going to get the advantage on the Sony Zeiss. Let's go ahead and stop it down the Sony Zeiss to 1.8, and then we're going to stop down the Sigma 51.4 to 1.8, just so that we can get a better reference to that. All right, Sony Zeiss is on the left. Let's see if they both get better towards the edges. No, okay, it's still soft. Sony Zeiss still holds its own, even when we stop down this Sigma. But the Sigma is not far off. So let's go ahead and let's do my comparison where we look at the Nifty 50 and we look at it at like f5.6, and we'll see how well they're doing. So the right hand side is the Nifty 50 f5 at 5.6. Let's see how much is caught up versus at 1.8. They look pretty good at f1.8. Here's our peripheral area here on the Nifty 50, not looking too shabby. And towards the edges here at 5.6, it seems to be pretty good as well. And I think most 50 millimeters, once you stop down to around f4, 5.6, they're pretty close in performance. So you're definitely seeing this one catch up. But you definitely had to stop down this Nifty 50 all the way to 5.6 to catch up to the Sony Zeiss at f1.4. Now let's look at the Sony, the Zeiss 55, because that one's an interesting comparison. So let's go ahead and stop down the Zeiss 55 to like 2.8, and let's see how much it catches up to this the f1.4. I do apologize for me talking too fast. You can definitely slow down the video if it helps you out. Central sharpness doesn't get better at f2.8, and you're still going to have a slight advantage on the edges on the Sony Zeiss. Let's see if we stop down to f4 maybe. Let's see how that looks. Sony, the 55.1.4 is the 55.1.8 is on the right hand side. Definitely catches up. Not too bad. Yeah, not too bad. I would say probably by f4, the Zeiss 55 is catching up to the Sony Zeiss. But holy smokes, the Sony Zeiss 1.4 is doing a great job. So let's look at the, finally, let's just look at the Rokinon really quick. Let's see, the Rokinon. Let's look at the Rokinon at 5.6 and see how well it's doing. Central sharpness looks good. Sides look good. This looks good. So you're definitely going to have to stop this Rokinon down to 5.6 to get comparable results. I'll even check f4. Alright, this one is super subjective. It's the Bokeh Test. Now this is the Bokeh Test, which is, as I mentioned already, very, very subjective. But I'm looking to see which ones have the nicer out of focus areas, circular in shape, that bokeh. Based on what I saw, I believe the Sigma 50 f1.4 was the better one of all of the 5 lenses, and that's just personal. This is me looking at it based on how it appears. So we're gonna do some comparisons side by side and show you what that sort of looks like. Okay, so let's go ahead and start here. So on the left, so the Sigma is going to be the benchmark each time, so you can see the difference. So the Sigma is on the left hand side, the Zeiss is on the right hand side. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the circular areas. Let's look at this flower first. You'll notice that it's a little bit considerably sharper on this one here, and then we start looking at these out of focus areas here. It just looks a little softer and circular in my opinion there. You can decide for yourself. And this out of focus area here, a little more circular in look, the way I see it. Let's jump to this one here. So this little circular area here, it's more pear-shaped on the Zeiss 55 than it is on the Sigma. And this is what it looks like to me overall. It just looks softer, out of focus, cleaner and smoother. And you can even see these circular shapes here. So that's the Sigma on the left and the Zeiss 55 on the right. Let's go ahead and jump to another one here. This is the Nifty 50 on the right hand side. So here's a shot of it far away. The Sigma is definitely softer, obviously, at 1.4. So these are all wide open. And you'll see the Sigma is sharper, as you'd expect from the test earlier. You'll see these have nicer circular shapes back here in the out of focus areas, even here as well, compared to these, which look a lot more distracting. Again, same thing here, softer, not too bad. And then we jump to this little circular area here, which again, the 51.8 looks a lot pear in shape versus a nicer, almost circular shape for the Sigma. All right, let's go ahead and now jump over to, actually let's jump to the Rokinon. So the Rokinon is on the right hand side. Notice the color shift here. It's a little bit warmer. So if you wanted to see how the colors get influenced, the Sigma is again sharp on this flower here. And then let's look at the out of focus areas. The Rokinon's not too bad either. You got a really nice out of focus area there. This isn't too bad either. A little more pear-shaped on the Rokinon from just my perspective here. Let's go ahead and yeah, even this here, that looks good. And then here, the Sigma is slightly rounder than that one. You know, between these two, I would still see that they look actually pretty good. It's just that when you compare the sharpness, the Sigma is just crispier, if that's important to you. So bokeh wise, this is not that bad, I would say, the Rokinon. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the Zeiss 51.4, the one you're paying a lot of money for. Okay, the Zeiss 51.4 definitely looks a little brighter. I don't know if my camera settings were off slightly, but let's look at it from this distance here. They look pretty good, both far away. Let's jump into the flower here.
Wow. Okay, so you can see here the Sigma and the Sony Zeiss. The Sony Zeiss is a hair sharper on this one. We know that the Sigma will catch up when we stop down to f1.8, but this is wide open. Let's look at some of these out of focus areas here. I don't know what happened here. This looks a little bit different in shape, kind of half circle there, but still looks really nice. Let's look here at the out of focus areas. A little more rounder here, more pear-shaped on that one here. Again, all personal preference. You guys have to decide what it looks nicer to you. Again, the Sigma looks a little more pleasing with the circular shapes. This is more pear-shaped looks on this, but you know, we're pulling hairs here, guys. Let's look here. You decide what looks nicer to you in terms of its out of focus areas. I'd like to know, having seen all 5 of them, which one would you choose in terms of which one has the best bokeh in the comments below? Would love to know.
Alright, the next thing we're going to look at is video autofocus. I think the way I set this up on my notes is the test when I was doing a face tracking test. And what's funny is I set up the Sony Zeiss f1.4. I made this sort of the benchmark because this was the most expensive lens and I figured it was going to have the best performance. And it's pretty close. This is I would say it's up there in terms of performance. So I hope I have my notes right. Alright, so in first place, in terms of just like face tracking and speed of autofocusing, acquiring focus, it's going to be the Zeiss 55 f1.8. This thing is very snappy. I found it to be the quickest in terms of just snapping focus on the subject. The next one is kind of weird. I would kind of rank this one here, the Sony 50 f1.8 second. It's close. I would rank these two probably close to each other, but I'm just gonna be nice and give the Sony 50 f1.8 a slight advantage in video autofocus. Okay? And then the Sony Zeiss comes in, the f1.4 comes in at 3rd place in terms of just autofocus. And you should be able to kind of see some of the examples I'm showing you. Again, it's one of those things you have to decide, but I feel for sure, I'm 100% certain the Zeiss 55 was the fastest, and you kind of have a blur in between. And then 4th and 5th place is kind of a mixed bag, okay? The Sigma is the slowest to focus in my opinion, based on what I saw. The Rokinon was probably slightly faster. Now, here's the problem. This thing had some issues. It just stopped focusing in video.
Let's see here. Okay, that's having trouble focusing there. Okay, something happened. Alright, so camera's glitching out. Focus is just locked up. Okay.
And because of that, and it happened twice, like twice or 3 times, I gave the advantage to the Sigma. The Sigma focused consistently, slower, but consistently. I don't know if that makes any sense. So this one had issues, and I don't know if firmware can fix it or not, which the problem is I don't know if it has the updated firmware, so I might be giving a bad shake. Let me know in the comments below what you know more about this one, but I would put this 4th place and then this one 5th place based on my testing. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do like a legitimate eye autofocus test, modeling and moving around, but I just sort of did a test on a screen. I had my face plastered on the laptop, and then I just moved the camera back and forth to test to see the autofocus performance with eye autofocus. I didn't rank these, unfortunately, but alright, in terms of just eye autofocus, the Sony f1.8 I thought was pretty good. So this one did a good job. There is some slight noise to it. The Sigma, because of that new motor inside, it's silent or near silent, and it focused really well. I didn't have any issues there. The Rokinon, I would say, was probably the worst performer of all of them. There were times when instead of tracking the eye, it went to the whole face when I was kind of moving in and out. So there's occasions where the Rokinon is struggling to identify the eye of their subject. So this one would probably fall last place, and then the Sony Zeiss 51.4 would probably come in 2nd place. That's the way I would look at it. It's really good. There's some slight subtle noise in the focusing and with the glass moving and all that good stuff. And then the Zeiss in my notes is the best one. It looks like, again, excellent, silent, and locked onto the subjects really well. Well, my test subject being me on my eye there. So there you go. So the bad one is the Rokinon, okay? There you go. All right. Now I also did some additional focusing tests, taking photos. I used the Sony A9 because, well, I have one and it has the best autofocusing system available, and so it's gonna push the lenses. All right, so the 50 f1.8, my notes, subtle noise from the mechanism there, slight breathing. So I noticed that in autofocus AFS, there is a little slight breathing when it's trying to focus. It kind of overshoots and then undershoots and then locks into focus. That happens with the third-party lenses. So there's this slight breathing in AFS, which isn't very bad, and then there's hardly any breathing at all with AFC. It's pretty quick. I marked it as good. Okay, good. And then Sigma 51.4, very subtle noise, soft noise. Like I mentioned before, slight breathing. You are gonna have an overshoot and then undershoot and then locks onto focus. So it's still a decent speed in terms of that. I would probably rank it probably 4th, Rokinon being 5th in that regards. And then the autofocus continuous is quick. It's quick. It snaps on. AFC is quick, but it's just AFS mode. It's a little bit slower, but AFC is really good. Rokinon 50 f1.4, I wrote down it has a mechanical robotic noise like zzz, zzz. So kind of bothersome. There is breathing, overshoots, undershoots, okay speeds. So I guess this would be the last place. And then it does have weird autofocus glitches when I'm focusing. I noticed it when I was trying to focus between subjects. It had trouble focusing on the softbox that I had set up, but everyone else didn't have any issues. So this had some issues. So I'd rank this kind of last place for sure, like without a doubt. Sony Zeiss 51.4, sound near silent, minimal breathing at all, very little in AFS. There is slight, but it's quick, okay? And then finally, quick autofocus continuous. I marked it as excellent. So yes, I marked it excellent in terms of its speed. And then finally, the Zeiss 55 f1.8, near silent. It's probably the quietest one of all of them. Minimal breathing, very little in AFS mode, and then quick in autofocus continuous. And I put my notes maybe slightly faster than the Sony Zeiss 50 f1.4, and I mean slightly faster than that one. Okay, so those are all my notes as far as 50mm lenses are concerned. So here are my recommendations, and I guess this is back to the summary. If you want the absolute best 50mm lens with the best compatibility, that's really important. Autofocus is decent, focus, speed, all these things, video, if that's all important to you and you want best resolution and sharpness, this is it. The Sony Zeiss 50 f1.4. And after seeing it today, I honestly would want to get one of these, personally. I'm not going to get one anytime soon, because I'll tell you why, but this is the one you would want to get, and obviously I would love to have this in my bag if I could, because it is phenomenal. Okay, overall, phenomenal. Let's go to this guy here, the 50 f1.8. It's not going to give you the best sharpness, wide open. Alright, I hope that was obvious. But it's the best budget one you can get. Everything else is priced kind of out of our league. This goes $250 right now on B&H Photo. The next lens goes for $600. So there's literally a double in price, almost, like $600 to $700. So there's nothing in between this. There's nothing in that $400 or $500 price range. So if you're on a budget, a tight budget, there's nothing wrong with this lens. Again, if you're spoiled with really sharp lenses, you're gonna have to pony up the cash. All right, that's the best way I can put it. But video autofocus is decent, autofocus speed is decent. You will be very happy with the results. But edge-to-edge sharpness and stuff, you won't be pleasantly happy. Okay, it's good, but not gonna be amazing. All right, it's really sad that I have to say this, but I would avoid this one like the plague. The Rokinon 50 f1.4. Again, I'm giving it a bad shake. It could have been an issue with firmware, but it just did not perform to what I expected it to do. Sadly, avoid this one of the bunch. The Sigma 50f1.4 is kind of falls into a weird place, okay? It goes for about $900, I think, maybe $949 right now. In terms of this lens, I really like it. The sharpness is second place to the Zeiss 50f1.4. That's where I would position this in terms of just overall sharpness. Autofocus is quick and snappy in photos, especially in autofocus continuous mode. Video autofocus is the dark horse. Well, I don't know if that's the right term there, but it's slow, right? So if you don't need video, you're not worried about it, and you don't mind manually focusing, for example, and you're more concerned about image quality, and this is about your price range, this is the one you go with. This has better sharpness than the Zeiss 55. Okay, so this is the one you should choose if that's what you are kind of in that zone. If you don't care too much about the video stuff and you're okay with the slow focusing. As I mentioned, if you're looking for one lens between the low end and the high end, the Zeiss 55 f1.8 is where it's going to be at. Autofocus is the fastest, it's silent. By the way, it is light, it is small, compact, and it just pairs well with your full frame bodies and pairs well with an APS-C like an A6300, for example. I was very, very impressed with it. Again, sharpness would fall third place compared to the Sigma and the 50f1.4 Zeiss, but it's still really damn good for what it is. Pricing, okay, here's the challenge. It goes for $1,000 retail. You can get it gray market. That's gonna be on you for $700, and that's how I got mine. And I think if I had to pick one lens out of all of these, this is the one I would probably choose and pick up every single time. And it's because of the fact that the weight savings, the form factor, the autofocus speed and performance is excellent on the grand scheme of things, okay? So that's how I would rank all of these. That's gonna do it for me. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this. Which 50mm lens would you pick? And don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell notification, smash that like button if you found some benefit out of this video, and the links to all these things will be in the comments/description below. I'm your host, That One Camera Guy, and I will catch you on the next video.
This is what we waited for.